Hey everyone, Mr. West here, and welcome to today's maths lesson. So, a bit of a clue what we're going to be doing on the screen here. We are going to be recognizing tenths and hundredths. Now, some of you are pretty confused at that, but if you look carefully at the top, there's a bit of a giveaway. We might be dealing with decimals, okay? So don't panic, we'll go through it step by step. I might ask you to pause the video when I ask you questions. That is time for you to try and figure out the answer. Obviously, make sure you pause the video because then I'll give you a couple of seconds and then we'll go through the answer. So if I do tell you to pause the video, make sure you do that, obviously, so then you're not working it and then automatically the answer's there for you. Okay, so today we're going to be recognizing tenths and hundredths. As always, we have a little bit of an introduction. Okay, we have been dealing with fractions, and hopefully we know what a numerator is and a denominator. Remember, the denominator is how many pieces it has been chopped into. Okay, so how many parts you have altogether. And remember, the numerator is how many has been taken up. We normally say how many has been eaten because we like to use food as an example. Okay, but remember, the numerator is how many parts have been taken up, or how many parts have been shaded, how many parts have been coloring in. Okay, so my question to you is, what fraction of each shape has been shaded? Now, just so you're not counting all the squares, my clue is these are 100 squares. Okay, so imagine it's all one chocolate bar and I have chopped it into 100. Okay, so you recognize these as 100 squares. So just to already figure out a bit of a clue for the denominator, okay, this is 100 square. Okay, so pause the video and try to work out what fraction of each shape has been shaded. Pause the video now and come back to me when you think you have the answer. Okay, so hopefully you have the answer. Okay, so let's go through them together. Let's see if you got both of the shapes correct. So the first one, I think a lot of you for this one here have maybe put 10 100ths, okay? But remember, 10 100ths can be simplified. Well, how do we do that? Well, these two numbers, the numerator and the denominator, they can both be divided by the same number. Can you figure out what they can be divided by? That's right, they both can be divided by 10. Okay, because, well, what's 10 divided by 10? How many 10s go into 10? Well, 1. Okay, and how many hundredths? Okay, well, how many 10s can I get in 100? Okay, well, I can get 10 because 10 times 10 is 100. So it's okay if you've written 10 100ths. That's completely fine. That's still correct. Or you can have 1/10. Okay, simplified. Because you can get 10 of these like stick-looking things. Okay, it looks like those Deans that we sometimes use. You can get 10 of those in this entire shape, so you can have 1/10. And for the other one, the only answer was 1/100th. Okay, because remember, this is 100 square, so it's been chopped into 100. So that's my denominator, because that's how many I have altogether. And 1 square has only been coloured in, so it's just 1/100th, because 1 is my numerator. That's how many has been taken up or shaded. Okay, so hopefully you got those correct. So let's move on. As always, we go through the PowerPoints together in class. So if you can do these on the PowerPoint, you'll be able to do the questions that are coming up on your PurpleMash. Okay, you will have a kind of quiz on PurpleMash, which should match the maths activity. So, for the first question, we have to complete the statement and shade the 100 square to match. Obviously, you can't colour in on your screens because you'll ruin your lovely electronic devices. So, we're just going to work out how many would we colour in. So, here it says we have 47 hundredths, okay? And that can be partitioned into, well, how many tenths and how many hundredths? Okay, if I have 47 hundredths, how can I partition that to work out how many tenths I have and how many hundredths I have? We're going to go through this first one together because a lot of you are probably really confused. Well, how do I work out tenths and hundredths? This is our first time doing it. Okay, the easy way to figure it out is if you look at 47 really carefully here. Okay, we need to work out first of all, well, what's hundredths and what's tenths? Okay, I have an amazing device here. Okay, and it allows me to draw on the screen. Okay, so we all know what the ones column is. Okay, we should all know what the ones are. Okay, so we have a ones column, but to the right of the ones column, we actually have a decimal point. That's right. Because like in money, you might have £1.27, for example, and you will write that as 1.27, like that. Okay, so we should all know our ones column, and then we have a decimal point. Okay, and do you know what's after the decimal point to the right? That's right, we have tenths. Okay, we have tenths. So we do it with a little t, because normally our tens column, we have a capital T, don't we, like that? Okay, but we have the ones column, then we have a decimal point column, and then we have tenths next to them. Okay, so imagine if I have a chocolate bar, and I chop that into 10 pieces. Okay, so I have a chocolate bar, I chop it into 10. Each little square that I've chopped is worth a tenth, because I've chopped that into 10. Okay, and guess what's after our tenths column? That's right, after the tenths is the hundredths column. Okay, so now we're dipping into decimals because we have our ones column, we have our tenths, and then after that we have our hundredths. Okay, and the easy way to work this out is imagine the number 47. Okay, well, if I asked you to partition that into tens and ones, you would say that there's 4 tens. Okay, you would have 4 tens, and you would have 7 ones. Okay, but obviously we're trying to figure out 47 hundredths. Okay, we're partitioning that into tenths and hundredths. Well, the good news is, okay, imagine the number 47. Okay, you've just told me there's 4 tens. Okay, an easy way to work out tenths is the exact same. Okay, because I actually have 4 tenths. Well, why do I only have 4 tenths? Well, if you were to colour in these squares, if you were to colour in 47 hundredths, okay, you would actually colour in all the top row. That's 1, that one there, 2, that one there, 3, and that one there, 4. Okay, and that would be 40 hundredths because each one of these rows is worth 10, isn't it? Or tenths, technically. So that would be 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, and 4 tenths. But we can't remember the leftover, the 7. Okay, because I need to figure out 47 hundredths. And all I would colour in is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these. Okay, because then I would technically have here, if I just coloured in 7 of those, I would actually just be colouring in 7 hundredths. Okay, so the answer for this one is when you have to do this on the quiz, 47 hundredths can be partitioned into, it can be 4 tenths and 7 hundredths. Okay, imagine it like tens. In 47, you have 4 tens. Okay, to work out 47 hundredths, you just have 4 tenths and 7 hundredths. And believe it or not, that is literally just the answer. Okay, because if I click, if I do that and then do this, there you go. It's like what I showed you with my pen. Okay, so 4 tenths, 7 hundredths, because you colour in 4 rows of these, which would be worth 4 tenths. Okay, because that'd be 40 hundredths. And it's just 7 of those squares. Okay, so 7 hundredths. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. Now I'm not going to be so nice. I'm going to see if you can work out the answer for the next ones. Okay, so that's a little bit of guidance. So, we all love a good part whole model. I know a lot of you are going, oh, but you've got to do it, unfortunately. Okay, so you have to fill in the missing numbers to complete the part whole model. So here I have 76 hundredths. Okay, and you have to figure out the missing squares here and here. Okay, so the missing square here, you have to figure out how many tenths do I have in 76? And how many, well, it says here 6 somethings here. I have 6 somethings here. There was a bit of a clue in the last slide. If you want to rewind a little bit and try and figure it out from there, then have a go. Okay, but you've got to figure out how many tenths do I have? And I have 6 somethings here. So pause the video and see if you can come back to me with the answer. I almost forgot. You need to make sure you have a pencil and some paper. Okay, just to have a bit of scribble on, and also so you can work out the answers if you wish. Okay, you can grab a pencil or a pen and some paper to work out the answers. So pause the video, try and tell me how many tenths do I have, and also I have 6 somethings. So figure out how much I have there. Okay, so pause the video and have a go. Okay, welcome back. So let's see if you managed to get the answer. There you go. So in 76, remember, 76 hundredths, how many tenths do I have? Well, if I had that 100 squid in front, if I had that 100 square in front of me, I would be colouring 7 of those rows, wouldn't I? And that'd be worth 70 hundredths. But I can simplify that to be 7 tenths. Okay, so I have 7 tenths. And how many hundredths? This was the bit that was missing here. I have 6 hundredths. Because if you imagine I get rid of that 7 there, imagine if I squiggle that out, okay, because I've already worked out how many tenths I have. Left over, I would have 6 hundredths, because I'd have to still colour in 6 of those squares. Okay, so well done if you got that right. And if not, don't worry. Okay, see where you went wrong and see if you can now try and fix it in the next question. Okay, so question number 3. Whoa, I know you're saying, but don't worry, it's quite simple. All right, you just have to figure out how many tenths and how many hundredths I have in A and B. So it says here, partition the following numbers into tenths and hundredths. So if I have 59 hundredths, how many tenths do I have and how many hundredths do I have? And for B, you have 16 hundredths, so how many tenths do I have? And how many hundredths do I have in that? Okay, so have a crack at these. Okay, pause the video and see if you can work them out. Remember, use the last slide in the slide before. You can rewind a little bit to remind yourself if you're still a little bit stuck, but have a go. So pause the video now and come back to me when you think you've got the answer. Okay, we're back. Here are the answers for part A and for part B. Here we go. So, did you get them right? Hopefully you did. Big thumbs up. Okay, so in 59 hundredths, I have 5 tenths. Because remember, I could colour in 5 of those rows. Because if I kind of change that 9 into a placeholder, if I change it into a 0, it would tell me I have 50 hundredths. And I can simplify that into 5 tenths. Okay, so it's 5 tenths and 9 hundredths, because remember, if you get rid of that 5 there, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. If you get rid of that 5 there, you'd still have 9 hundredths left. So that gives you a little bit of a clue there for 9 hundredths, because I'd still have to colour in 9 of those squares. And for B, again, 16 hundredths, I would have 1 tenth, because that's my tenth here. If I was to draw my place value grid, okay, if I get my pen here, it might be a little bit clearer. So if I get my pen, technically that would be my tenths column there above the 1. That'd be how many tenths I have. And next to it, the 6, that'd be how many hundredths I have in place value. Okay, so I'd have my hundredths there. It's a bit of a squiggle. Okay, I'm still getting used to my pad, but that would be my hundredths column there. Okay, so I'd have 1 tenth. Okay, 1 tenth and 6 hundredths. And that's it. Okay, look to the number to the left. That's how many tenths, and that's how many hundredths there. Okay, so well done if you got those right. Moving on. So, complete the part whole models below. Okay, so it's like the reverse, I believe, of question 1. Okay, so complete the part whole models below. So you have 8 tenths and 10 hundredths. What would that be as the number above? And for the next one, you've got 5 tenths and 20 hundredths. Now, be careful. These are a little bit cheeky, but I'm interested to see if you can figure out, okay, what it would be in those missing circles above. You have to complete the part whole model, so you have to tell me what numbers go in at the top here. Okay, these are a little bit sneaky, and I'll show you why, but I'm interested to see if you can have a crack at it first. Okay, so have a go, pause the video, and come back to me when you think you've had a little bit of an idea, and if you think you've got the answers. Okay. Okay, so these were quite sneaky, these ones, and I'll show you why in a minute. So I'm going to go through the answers. So Here you go. These are the answers now. And these were quite cheeky because a lot of you might have put like maybe 810 by accident, 810 hundredths, okay? Which can't be right because then I'd have 8 whole ones, okay? So we have 8 tenths. And remember, 8 tenths is equal to 80 100ths, isn't it? Because if I was to show that on my square, on my 100 square, I'd colour in 8 of those rows because each row is worth 10. Okay, so that could actually mean 81 hundredths. So if I draw underneath it, so 8 tenths is equal to 80. Okay, it's worth 80 100ths. Basically, I'm just multiplying both numbers by 10. Okay, so 8 times 10, 10 times 10. That's actually equal to 81 hundredths. And I can actually add 81 hundredths and 10 100ths together because it was quite sneaky because 10 100ths can also simplify to mean, remember, 1/10. Okay, so it's a little bit of converting here, but I think it's just easier to get your tenths and multiply them by 10 because hopefully you should all know your 10 times tables because 8 times 10 is 80 and 10 times 10 is 100. And then you just simply add them together. So 80 add 10 would just be 90. And remember, you don't have to add the bottom numbers together. You don't have to do 100 add 100 equals 200. Okay, because remember, that's just how many parts we have. We're just adding the top. We're adding the numerators. Okay, and 80 add 10 will be 90. So I have 90 hundredths. You can also simplify this to have 9 tenths if you really want to. That's fine. Okay, because remember, if I divide these numbers by 10, I would have 9 and 10. So 9 tenths. Okay, so these were quite sneaky, especially for this one, because remember, 5 tenths, if you times the numbers by 10, that can also be an equivalent fraction. It can be 50 hundredths. Okay, and 50 hundredths add 20 hundredths. Well, I just do 50 add 20. And 50 add 20 is 70. Okay, so that's 70 hundredths. Or if you've got 7 tenths, that's completely fine. Okay, so that one was a little bit cheeky. So when you do your questions, be sure to look out for those. Okay, so moving on to problem solving. So Sophia is thinking of a number which has tenths and hundredths. So my number is less than 1. Okay, and the tenths in my number can be represented with 2 shaded rows of 100 square. Okay, and it says here to write 5 possibilities for Sophia's number. Now, tenths and hundredths allow us to go less than 1. Okay, so don't worry about this top bit here because tenths and hundredths are less than 1. Because if I was to write it as a decimal, okay, whoops, I give you the answers there, cheeky, cheeky. Hopefully, I've got rid of that very quick. So if I was to show you tenths and hundredths, in the ones column, I would actually have 0. I have no ones. Okay, and the tenths and hundredths, okay, I might have maybe, remember my decimal point, I might have 1/10 and 7 hundredths. And this is below 1 because I have no ones. Okay, so don't worry about that top bit for now. Okay, so the tenths in my number can be represented with 2 shaded rows of 100 square. So try and remember what that means. So how many tenths would you have if you've got 2 shaded rows? Okay, so have a go. Try and write 5 possibilities for Sophia's number. Okay, I know I accidentally did it, so hopefully you're not cheating. So have a go. Try and write 5 possibilities, okay, for Sophia's number. How many hundredths or how many tenths do you think? It'd be easy to write in hundredths, okay, which we'll find out in a minute. Okay, so pause the video and have a go at this problem. Okay, we're back. So, looking at the answers here, you can have loads. Okay, remember, the tenths in my number can be represented with 2 shaded rows of 100 square. There was quite a few answers for this. So, as long as it had, if you had 2 tenths, okay, because all of these have 2 tenths, then you're correct. Okay, you can't have 3 tenths, because remember here, Sophia said the tenths in my number can be represented with 2 shaded rows. If I had 3 shaded rows, that would be 3 tenths, so that'd be wrong, okay, because it won't be 2 shaded rows, okay? But it says here, write 5 possibilities, so you could have 21 hundredths, you could have 22 hundredths, 23 hundredths, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29 hundredths. So any of those answers are correct. Okay, so don't worry about that top bit. That just means that we're getting below 1. Okay, we're going into the tenths and hundredths, which allow us to go below 1. Okay. So the tens in my number can be represented with two shaded rows of 100 square. So any of these numbers, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, they were fine. Okay, in hundredths. Okay, 21 hundredths, 23 hundredths, 22 hundredths, and so on. So moving on to problem number 2. Okay, Freddie has completed the bar model to represent 5/10 and 100th. Okay, so here's his bar model. So he's splitting, like the part whole model, he's splitting 51 hundredths into tenths and hundredths. Okay, you might notice something with these numbers here. Okay, or these fractions, technically. Okay, and it says here to explain the mistake Freddie has made. So I'm interested to see if you can spot the mistake. So pause the video and see if you can do it. Okay, so let's see if you got the right answer. So Freddie is incorrect because, okay, he has actually partitioned the number into 5/10 and 51 hundredths rather than 5/10 and 100. So here, he's split this fine because how many tenths are in 51 hundredths? Well, there's 5/10. Because remember, this number here at the beginning in 51, okay, 51 hundredths, that shows how many tenths I have. So I have 5/10. So that bit's fine. Okay, because remember, if I change that 1 into a placeholder, it'd tell me I have 50 hundredths, and that can be simplified into 5/10. But it's this bit here that he's gone wrong. Okay, he's accidentally put 51 hundredths, which is the exact same as the top answer there, isn't it? 51 hundredths there, 51 hundredths there. But remember, if I'm trying to figure out how many hundredths he has, it's that number there. If I was to get rid of that 5, he would only have 1 hundredth. Okay, but he's accidentally put 51 hundredths. So that's where his mistake was. It was here. Okay, moving on. Jackson has represented 16 hundredths in 2 different ways. Okay, so he's done one representation here, and he's done one representation here. And it's up to you to tell me, is he correct? And explain your answer. So both of the representations have to be correct. Okay, so is he right here? And is he correct here? Okay, so have a look at the fractions very carefully and tell me, has he done the part whole model correctly? And has he done the bar model correctly? Okay, so pause the video and let's see if you managed to do it. Okay, we're back. So are you ready for the answers? Here they are. So Jackson is actually wrong. He's incorrect because the part whole model does not show the correct number of tenths. It should say 1/10 instead. So looking at the bar model, this is fine. He's managed to do it into 1/10 because, well, it'd be 1/10 is right here. So it'd be 1/10. And these are my hundredths because remember, squiggle out the 1, I have 6 hundredths, and that's fine. So he's done 1/10 and 6 hundredths. That's completely fine. Okay. This part whole model is where he went wrong because in 16 hundredths, okay, well, he's done the hundredths, right? Because remember, if I look at that last number there in 16, that tells me how many hundredths I have. I would have 6 hundredths. That's bit. It's this bit here he's gone wrong. He's told me I've got 16 tenths. Whoa. Okay. Well, if it's 16 tenths, that would actually mean I have 1 whole one, and I've got 6 tenths left over, which I actually don't. I don't have 1 whole one here. Okay. So 16 hundredths, remember, you look at the number to the left, and that tells me how many tenths I have. I actually have 1/10. But he's actually put 16 tenths, so that's wrong. So 16 here, it should actually be 1/10. I should actually have a 1 at the top. Okay, so excellent if you've managed to get those. Well done. And that is the end of my PowerPoint. Okay, so go through the PowerPoint again. Go through the video again if you still need a little bit more practice and to see where you went wrong. Okay, so once you've got to grips with tenths and hundredths, once you've managed to understand, try and complete your PurpleMash quiz. It should be a 2 quiz where there should be some questions and you have to figure out which one is the right answer. Remember, you can work out the answers on a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. I'm not too bothered. Okay. So once you've managed to come to terms with this, okay, now you can complete your PurpleMash activity. And remember, it's the 2 quiz. So excellent. Good work. And hopefully you managed to do the PurpleMash quiz okay. Okay. So you'll be joining me tomorrow for our next maths lesson. So stay safe. I hope you managed to do it and enjoy. Take care.